just read from Mark 3. Now, Jesus was attending a routine service in a synagogue when he noticed a man with a shriveled hand, which was a significant disability and which cried out for Jesus' attention. But Jesus also noticed some Pharisees watching him closely. Now, he knew exactly what these dudes were up to, the old buzzards, vultures, circling for something to pounce on. And they were waiting for him to do something outrageous so that they could find fault. And restoring this man's shriveled hand, which they would define as working on the Sabbath, would do quite nicely. He knew these guys felt no compassion for the man, and that his disability was of no consequence in their eyes. Their sole hope, their sole desire was to catch Jesus breaking the law. So when Jesus asked, "Hey guys, is it okay to do good on the Sabbath?" they didn't say a word, not a word. They could just sense he was going to do it. And their noses tingled with the anticipation that they were on the verge of watching Jesus do something incriminating, something they could use for crushing him. And they weren't going to mess that up by agreeing that, yes, it is okay to do good on the Sabbath, because they knew that that would give Jesus permission to heal this poor man's shriveled hand. And they weren't going to do that in a million years. So they just sat there in silence, like vultures, lined up in a dead limb, their eyes fixed on their prey, watching, hoping, waiting. Now, in response to their silence, in response to their refusal to answer that simple little question, Jesus looked around at them in anger. Did you get that? Did you hear that? In anger. Jesus was angry. He was angry at those vultures and their mindless legalism that put blind obedience to the law above compassion and caring. So ignoring their piercing eyes, he turned to the man and said, "Stretch out your hand." And the hand was healed. Now, on another occasion, when Jesus was teaching, he became aware his disciples were sending away parents who had brought their children for a blessing. And the text says, when Jesus saw this, he was indignant. Did you get that? Did you hear that? Indignant. Jesus was indignant. In other words, Jesus was angry. And out of his anger, Jesus said, "Let the little children come to me, and do not hinder them, for the kingdom of God belongs to such as these." And then he blessed the children. Now, the fact that Jesus got angry in these stories is a rather startling realization, because we don't generally consider anger to be a character trait of Jesus. When we think of Jesus, we usually think of positive, wonderful traits: grace, mercy, love, compassion, caring, healing. And we just kind of overlook or fail to pay attention to the times he got angry. And that's because it seems out of character to think of Jesus being angry. And that's because we consider anger to be an unworthy emotion, a selfish emotion. See, we ourselves feel unworthy and unholy when we get angry, so we assume that anger is something that Jesus would not have experienced. We assume that it would have been beneath him as the Son of God to get angry. But the text is clear. It's here, right here in the Bible. Jesus did get angry. He did get indignant. So Jesus' anger, what he got angry about and how he handled his anger is something important for us to observe, to expand our understanding of Jesus. So let's take a look at the anger of Jesus. Now, first of all, it's important for us to observe what it was that made Jesus angry. And that is that what Jesus got angry about was things of the kingdom, or said another way, Jesus got angry about people's lack of regard for the things of the kingdom. And just in case we're not sure about what Jesus considered to be kingdom issues, let's turn to the parable of the sheep and the goats, where the king says to those on his right, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me." Hunger, thirst, lack of clothing, sickness, need of any kind, these were kingdom issues. These were the issues that Jesus cared about. And what we see throughout the ministry of Jesus is that he got angry over failure to care about the issues of the kingdom. Now, in addition to noting that it was kingdom things that Jesus got angry about, it's important for us to also notice that we have no record of Jesus getting angry about selfish things. I mean, he didn't get angry about frustrations, irritations, and intrusions into his life and space, the kind of things that hook our anger. See, he didn't get angry when his parents took him away from the temple when he was 12. He didn't cry and kick up a fuss and say, "I'm having too much of a good time here. I'm enjoying this conversation. You can't. He just simply was obedient to his parents. He went. There was no anger. He didn't get angry when that disgusting, sinful woman insisted on weeping over his feet and interfering with his teaching and his conversation at that banquet. He just accepted it. He blessed her. He sent her away. He forgave her. We have no record of Jesus getting angry about selfish things. No, it was lack of regard for the things of the kingdom that made Jesus angry, and not selfish things. So with the first point about Jesus' anger being that what Jesus got angry about was kingdom issues, let's look at the second point, how Jesus handled his anger. And the first thing to notice about how Jesus handled his anger is that no matter how angry he got, Jesus was always in control of himself. There's no evidence that he ever flew into a rage and told someone off. Jesus just simply didn't go there. And the second thing to notice about what Jesus did when he became angry is that he became assertive. Now, to be assertive means one is driven not by out of control emotion, but by a controlled awareness of something that needs to be taught or achieved. He didn't blow up, didn't tell people off. He just simply firmly and carefully advanced kingdom goals. See, when he looked at those Pharisees in anger, he didn't explode and say, "You vultures, you despicable vermin of the earth, May you be infested with the fleas of 1,000 camels? No. He just simply turned to the man and calmly, quietly said, "Stretch out your hand," teaching the importance of compassion over legalism. When the disciples were sending away the children and the parents, he didn't say, "You idiots! What in the world were you thinking? Don't you know how bad this makes me look?" Instead, he said, "Don't send them away." And he blessed the children, and he used it as an opportunity to teach a lesson about how one needs to receive the kingdom of God. So what we see in Jesus is that what he got angry about was kingdom issues, not selfish issues. And then that he channeled his anger in an assertive manner to advance kingdom purposes. Now, being angry in the same way that Jesus was angry is a challenge for most of us. See, the main challenge is that what hooks our anger is most often the selfish things of life, isn't it? Yeah, I've got to admit that my source of anger is selfish things. And I seem to see plenty of evidence that that's true for most people. Just stop and think, what makes you angry? That idiot driver who cuts you off. That person who said they would, but they didn't. That person who said they wouldn't, but they did. Contrary to the pattern of Jesus, what makes us angry is usually the frustrations and the irritations of life. And I suspect that for most of us, not much of our anger arises out of the things of the kingdom as it did for Jesus. I don't see many of us angry at how human structures and behavior militate against or fail to produce love, justice, and compassion. I don't see us getting nearly as angry as we should over things that clearly grieve the heart of God. I had a college friend whose career in life turned out to be working with underprivileged children in Washington, D.C. And I was often impressed by her anger about racism. I wasn't nearly as angry about racism as she was. And I don't think we North American Christians get angry enough about racism. It's a tremendous evil in our society. It stands in the way of justice and equal rights and equal opportunity for large numbers of people. But we tend to not get angry about that. It's a kingdom issue. A second issue is how we North American Christians spend so much of our incomes and our wealth on ourselves while making so little available to address the massive issues of poverty and injustice. In the face of sell your possessions, give to the poor, and come follow me, North American Christians continue to add SUVs and RVs and pools and boats and starter mansions and second homes and season tickets and cruises and tours to their inventories of things they have to have for themselves. Meanwhile, the percentage of income that North American Christians give is calculated conservatively to come in at about a quarter of a tithe. Now just think of what we could do for kingdom issues if all Christians tithed. And if the church had 4 times as much to join with Jesus in his anger at poverty, hunger, sickness, ignorance, oppression, injustice, homelessness, and failure to respond to the good news of the kingdom. As we look around us, both at society and the church, We ought to be very angry people, angry at these affronts to kingdom goals and purposes. But I'm afraid we're much angrier over other things, selfish things like idiot drivers, the fact we can't get our favorite program in our cable package, and how slow our internet connection is. Dr. Bob Pierce, the founder of World Vision, used the statement, "Let my heart be broken by the things that break the heart of God," as his life's guiding principle. And I'd like to revise his statement for our purposes today to say, "May I be made angry by the things that make God angry." And that kingdom anger should lead us to be assertive, as Jesus was assertive. If we get angry like Jesus got angry, our anger is not going to look like anger as the world defines it. That is a blazing, out of control rage. Instead, it's going to look like a mobilization to respond to concerns and issues. Anger about Christian or kingdom issues is going to look like an increase in hospitals and clinics and schools and relief and development and church planting and efforts to end oppression and injustice. Anger about kingdom issues will produce efforts to respond to the things that break the heart of God and that make Jesus angry. Now, we Mennonites have a huge resource when it comes to expressing kingdom anger, in that we have Mennonite Central Committee, as it reaches around the world expressing the anger of Jesus at hunger, disease, and oppression. We ought to be strong supporters of Mennonite Central Committee. But there are other avenues for expressing kingdom anger as well. For example, I'm a major supporter of and a bell ringer for the Salvation Army, as it expresses its anger at the inability of local people to feed, clothe, and house themselves and to educate their children. My wife and I support a Christian girls' school in Liberia because research shows that the best way to raise the health and the welfare of a nation is to educate its girls and its women. And then, looking beyond our Mennonite avenues, there are relief agencies such as World Vision, Doctors Without a Border, and others that we know of, as long as they are well vetted and known to be operating with integrity. You see, it is in those ways that we can respond to the things that make Jesus angry, these kingdom issues. Now, you'll notice that I'm not saying a word in this sermon about the anger of Jesus, about how to handle anger over the selfish things of our lives. And that's because we don't have a model for that in Jesus. Jesus' model was just simply to not get angry over those selfish issues. So he left us no model for how to handle selfish anger. Jesus provides no model for how to handle our anger about the person who said they would but they didn't, or they wouldn't but they did, except to not get angry about it. To be open and accepting and understanding. And that then points us back to the fact that our anger ought to be at kingdom issues, because that's what got Jesus angry, and less over selfish things. Now, I want to conclude today by completing my incomplete sentence, which I used as my sermon title, which is, if you want to get Jesus really angry. And the rest of the sentence is this: don't care about the things he cares about. If you want to get Jesus really angry, don't care about kingdom issues. Don't care about a man with a shriveled hand. If you want to get Jesus really angry, don't care about parents and children hungry for a blessing. Don't care about racism or the failure to respond to need. If you want to get Jesus really angry, don't care about homelessness and hungry children or people with no access to medical care. Because you see, those are the things that make Jesus angry. If you want to be on Jesus' side, start getting angry about the things that make him angry. And then start being assertive in responding. Write that check. Ring that bell. Volunteer for that project. Get angry about the things that make Jesus angry. And start being assertive in addressing kingdom issues.